I'm going to make this short and sweet. This video is actually going to be pretty long. I'm not responsible for this video. Take everything with a grain of salt. Always go ask an attorney. This is a learning video because I just never look straight forward. I always look around because the outside forces may want to commit harm upon us. This is just really a talk deal of a guy helping another guy out and went through the process. Now remember, on some of these videos, you guys look at these sovereign citizen videos and all that and think the guys are in trouble. Okay, now there's some of them that does get in trouble because they did something wrong and this, that, here and there. But the main part of anything is they cannot be a court case without jurisdiction. So if they never have jurisdiction, then there is no court case. And that means there would be no verifiable proof of the courts. Okay? We look at these videos and we're thinking, oh my gosh, you know, he spent 10 years in jail because of X and X a day. You know, and people download this and they record the videos and stretch it out to another one, then another one watches the videos and proceeds forward over time, right? So, but if you don't do certain things correctly anyway, you're looking at some type of jail fine or jail time and all that kind of stuff. So that does happen. So you've got to do your due diligence to learn how certain things operate. All right. So just recognize that there will possibly be consequences when you stand up for your rights and this, that, here, and there, right? The government entity don't like getting rid of the powers. Power corrupts, right? And just like any other corruptions, they gotta hide it. And everything is always hidden from the people. And we've been lied to and all this kind of stuff. Again, the reason why I got involved in this is because I was innocent and they told me I was guilty. You know, it may have been a ticket, but still, I was innocent. And, you know, I learned over a period of time, you know, innocent and not guilty is two different definitions. It's a sucker of words, all right? It's trickery, all right? If you're innocent until proven guilty, then why do you have to do a plea, y'all? You always got to put two together. If you're innocent until proven guilty, why do you have to make a plea? Period. You should not have no more questions after that. Period. Regardless of what they say and they twist these terms and these words and all that kind of stuff. But if you're innocent until proven guilty, then why do you have to plea? I cannot stretch that out enough. By the way, I'm not a sovereign. I'm not a sovereign citizen. I'm just a man trying to figure out his way in the world.
Hello everyone, this is Robert Michael with REM Private Management. I'm here with a friend of mine who had a court hearing today that went surprisingly well. Yet again, from the process that I had put together over the years and had done several times. And each time we do, we kind of refine it a little more. And my friend here is going to use the alias of John Henry Doe. We do have case numbers, though, for people that want to look it up, but you're not going to see much because everything was done in private. And it did go very easy, very simple, and very smooth. And I would like my friend John Henry here to give an account of what went on, you know, what was his issue and all of that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my friend John Henry. John Henry, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Actually, we're both doing great.
That's true. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, John, why don't you tell people what happened first off? Just what was your case? What happened to you? How did you get in this situation? What is the situation?
Yeah. So the situation was I was driving a vehicle with an unregistered vehicle and what they considered improper tags. So I was pulled over for that reason, and they wanted to tow my vehicle, and I refused. I refused to get out of the vehicle. That's what they wanted me to do. I asked them for what reason, and they really didn't give me any specific reasons other than the vehicle was not registered. So they decided to arrest me for that reason, and basically their reason for arresting me was resisting arrest.
Interesting. Now, how were you? What was your attitude towards them? Were you belligerent? Were you calm? Obviously you were probably nervous, but what was your take on that? How did you feel you reacted?
Yeah, so I was a little bit nervous, but I basically just stated, that driving a vehicle. Or I said, first of all, I wasn't driving the vehicle. They kept insinuating I was driving. I said I was traveling and I'm free to travel. Kind of went down that road with them. I think what they made the assumption is that I'm a sovereign because they called in quite a few other officers or state troopers in, and a bunch of them kept mentioning the sovereign stuff, and I explained to them I'm not a sovereign. I did hand them my identification. I didn't give them my license. I had a private identification that I made up, just stating that I'm a private, American national. I'm here in peace and all that. But again, the bottom line is they don't follow any of that, and that was really the reason for, I believe, for arresting me.
Yeah, and this is in Connecticut, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so, and if I understand from our previous conversations, you don't have any prior criminal record or anything?
No, never been arrested. Really the only thing I've ever been to court or anything is speeding tickets, right? Which I'm sure everybody's experienced that, but no criminal record whatsoever.
Right. So you're out there. They've got you, in the car. They're arresting you. How did you handle going into jail and all that? Did you sign anything? Did you give them your name? How did you handle any paperwork that they threw at you?
Yeah. So basically, when they brought me to, their station, and they started to do the processing. There was quite a bit of paperwork. They had all the charges that I had to sign for, as well as the bonds. I had to post the bonds to be released. But what I did is on any of those signature lines, and this is all, so I give you credit for this, for kind of drilling this into my head, is, I never signed my name anymore. I signed without prejudice. That's actually my signature is without prejudice. So all the paperwork that I had signed at the jail was without prejudice.
Right. No, and I always say this, I never use UCC 1-308 because that's not what UCC 1-308 says. It says to use the words. So I always use the words as my signature without prejudice or all rights reserved or something of that similar import, and that's exactly what you did. So,
and I did get called on it. One of the troopers said, "That's not your signature," and I said, "Well, that's how I signed my name." And they did kind of put up a little bit of a fight, but just moved on after a little bit, and felt it wasn't worth the battle. So
now, when you signed it, did you sign it in cursive or just plain handwriting?
Just plain handwriting without prejudice.
Great.
And I made it relatively clear.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, it needs to be. That's why I was asking. And there is no law on the signature. Your signature is whatever your mark is. So if you say that that's what it is, that's what it is. They can't tell you to put any specific mark on there. So, they're kind of stopped from doing that. So you got in there. You didn't sign anything. That's awesome. You signed without prejudice. So what about the bond? Did they make you sign a bond? How did they release you?
Yeah, they did have me sign a bond, and again, I don't think they really paid attention to that because I was very nervous.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it here for a second, just in case. I don't know, they don't demonetize it or whatever. This video was also a couple years ago, so just take it with a grain of salt on that too.
All that, right? Signing, especially the bond, and signing without prejudice on it. But the bond bailsman got his money, and he could care less about what was on that paper. He didn't even look at it.
That's right.
I was pretty happy about that because I was waiting for him to look at the signature and question it, but they didn't, and just moved on.
So this is great because you're wondering what's going to happen. You did the proper steps. You didn't give them any information. You didn't sign your name on anything. You were kind and polite as much as you could be. Just saying you're not a sovereign citizen because you're not. That you're an American, which you are. You're a Connecticuter because you were born in Connecticut or on Connecticut, as some people would say. So they let you out, and then of course they have a court hearing for you at some point in time, correct?
That's correct.
And that was not immediately. What was it, like a few weeks later or something like that, or a month later?
They give you, I think it was 3 weeks. I know
That's
they
right.
try to make it relatively quick, and after going through all that we went through, I kind of understand why. They don't want to give you a lot of time to kind of get all this stuff figured out. So they do make it pretty quick. It was within 3 weeks.
Right. Now, this is probably where I should say, none of this is tax or legal advice or tax advice or professional advice. This is merely for entertainment purposes and information. And we really want to know, or I'm sure everybody listening wants to know, what did you do? How did you make this work? So we can kind of get into what did we put together, because we did some stuff that I've accumulated over the years, refining this, making it simpler and simpler, and I don't think we did a whole lot, did we?
No, I mean, I followed your initial process of, doing the administrative process and getting all that paperwork in line, reclaiming the straw man and all that. So that was part of your procedure that I went through. So we had all that documentation already completed.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in there, one of the main things I always talk about is that declaration of status, where we accept and acknowledge the certificate of live birth, and we put a copy of that into our declaration of status. We accept it as a deed, and we add some other exhibits, and we record that. It's not a very big or hard process, but that was part of the process that we did, right?
That's correct, yeah, but that was completed, a little while back.
Months ago, yeah.
Kind of was in our back pocket, I guess, to be used in a situation like this.
Right, and then we did the administrative process, perfected the claim, and that's why I always tell people, it's not enough to be reactive. You have to have a good offense, and it doesn't take a lot to create your offense. So we did that. You're getting ready for court, and you're probably thinking, all right, well, how are we going to attack this? And then that's when you reached out to me, and we worked together on developing your plan. And so what else did we do there? We, well, I'll go ahead. I'll let you tell that part of it.
Yeah. So the first, with that 3-week time period didn't give us a lot of time to get much prepared. So when we spoke, you just recommended to, ask for an extension, and that's what I did. I said, without legal counsel, I just need more time to prepare for the case. They were fine. They gave us another 30 days to prepare, and that was critical because that allowed us to put together power of attorney and the documentation case. So that was key, is to getting that extension.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said I recommended, because I don't give legal advice. I let you make your own decisions. I just suggest, right? So thank you for that. So you did that, and then that's when I went back to the research, and all the years we've been doing this, and I've done this quite a few times with some different issues. And what was it that you did from there? What exactly took place?
Yeah, so that's when we did put together the power of attorney. We learned a little bit about the process of discharging the debt and how that would work, utilizing that documentation that we had put together previous to that, right? Using your birth certificate, understanding a little bit about accepted for value. So it really was educating, or at least for myself, it was educating myself on how that process actually works.
Right.
And utilizing those tools to implement that into this case. Because basically, my understanding of it is they're just looking for their payday.
Yep.
And really, what we're doing is, utilizing the techniques that you teach to discharge that charge.
Well, yeah, we paid them. So to clarify it, what John is saying here is that we accepted the charges. So they gave him a charging instrument. His charges, whatever that sheet is, an indictment, whatever they call it, is a charging instrument. So we get a certified copy of that. We accept it for value, because there's no real contract, and that's when you accept something for value. When there's an implied contract and somebody hands you an instrument with charges on it, you can accept that for value and then return it for value right back to them becoming the holder in due course. So that's how we got the charges. We accepted the charge. What we are saying essentially is, hey, we're not going to argue with you. We're not going to say we're guilty or not guilty. We're just going to accept that these charges exist, and not a problem. We're not fighting with you. We're going to take care of this. And then that's when we did what with the birth certificate. We took that, and how did we utilize that?
Right. So the birth certificate was used as a bill of exchange. That was the payment, right? That's
Yep.
the money
check
that they were looking for. So
That's right.
And that worked out really well. I think the key to you mentioned is we don't argue with them.
All right, so I'm gonna pause there for a second. All right, so what they're talking about, I have never done. So my knowledge on this is limited. I do have somewhat understanding what they are doing. I just never done it.
And I think that goes a long ways. Not to be confrontational with them. It's just you are doing your job and due diligence.
Always be calm. Speaking of which, just like anything else, if you make somebody else mad, they're going to be retaliating against you, and they're going to figure out something.
Just to get this process completed and not putting up a fight. I think that's where they really start to push back, and I think that's was part of our success, was just not arguing with them.
That's right. And, again, there's more pieces to this, where you were acting in the executor position, and you did come from the position of that executor, but you had power of attorney to do that. And that's a very important piece, too. So there's a couple moving parts here that are really important. Number one, you had to have standing, and that's where your status and stuff came from, your process that you did. Okay, and then you had to have authority to act as the agent. That's where your power of attorney came from. So now you're the executor, general executor, and you're just settling out any of the charges on behalf of the estate. So they gave you charges, so you accepted them, not a problem. I'm going to go ahead and pay you, and then you gave them the birth certificate as the bill of exchange, which essentially is the payment. It's just like writing a check when you fill it out properly. And I think you paid them. I think you overpaid them, didn't you? Didn't you give them quite a bit of money?
Yeah, I think maybe the next time, if I ever do go into court, they'll all be driving around in Ferraris over there.
Because how much did you give them, if you could share that.
I think we set it at 500,000.
Yeah, I think that about took care of your charges. I'm sure they were happy about that. So we did have an issue in trying to decide who exactly.
Now, when they say 500,000, it's not what you guys, some of y'all newbies, think of. Okay, it's not dollars or anything like that. Okay, it's kind of like when you get a bank loan for a $200,000 house, right? Well, you got a $200,000 house, and you're making payments on it, right? All right. But did you ever see the $200,000 for that house? No, because the money was created. Okay? And don't know exactly how to explain that at this point in time. But it's false money. Okay? When they say legal tender, okay, they're talking about, creating something out of nothing. They're creating debt with debt, all right? And that's what they're doing, okay? They created debt with debt, okay? So it's not like he pulled in his pocket or went to his bank and he forked out $500,000. No, it's a legal tender of another sort, kind of like Bitcoins, okay? And that's kind of a way you can look at it, all right? It's an off-brand deal. They have their own way of legal tender. Bitcoin has their own way of legal tender. And then we use cash as the people's kind of legal tender, okay? All right. Oh, darn it. I might have to go through all this. Change. Flip. Sorry.
We were going to appoint as a fiduciary to get this matter handled because you didn't have an assigned judge and you didn't have an assigned state's attorney or prosecutor yet, so we didn't really know who to send that to. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was a part that we were kind of trying to figure out, and we decided just to send it to the state's attorney, I guess you could call him the senior state's attorney. And that's basically what we did.
Well, before that, though, we sent it to the chief administrative judge of that courthouse, right?
That is correct. So we did do the first process that we went through. We sent it to the judge, which in turn they ended up sending that back to us, that package back to us.
Right, and we sent it registered mail, and everything was private. Nothing got filed. We didn't file a single thing into that case, correct?
That's correct. Everything was done through, a private mail address.
Yep. Which was general delivery.
General delivery.
Yep. So you did that, and you sent it to the chief administrative judge of that courthouse, but then you had your hearing, and it had just gotten in their hands like 2 days prior to your hearing. So what happened when you got to the hearing, and the judge you're in front of doesn't have the documents, but you know they were delivered to her boss or the chief administrative judge of that courthouse? What took place that first hearing you went to that day, or it really was your second because you got an extension? But what took place there?
Yeah, so the way it worked, and I'm not sure if this is how it works in all courts, is that they call you up. The prosecutor calls you up initially, and you discuss and try to negotiate the case then. And that's where I started with. I'm here on special appearance as a Connecticut tour, private jurisdiction, and that's when he said, oh, all right, time out. You're going to have to bring this up in front of the judge. So they basically, put the case aside until the judge actually called me up. So, I waited for quite a while. I finally got called up in front of the judge, and again, the prosecutor reads the charges, and then the judge, basically asked me, well, how do you want to plead? And that's when, again, I started, I'm here on special appearance as a Connecticut tour in private jurisdiction, and that's as far as I got, and she kind of shut me down. And then she goes, how do you want to plead? And I basically started again. I'm here on special appearance in Connecticut tour, and she goes, okay, all right. And she kind of went on and said a few other things, and then she finally said to me, are you here to represent yourself? And that's when I probably made the mistake by saying yes. But I think at that point she was just trying to protect me, to be honest with you. And she said, when I said yes, then I'm here to represent myself. She says, okay, you're going to need to take this up with the prosecutor. We're going to set a new court date, and you get in front of the prosecutor, and you work it out with him. So that's basically the actual first interface with the judge was pretty short and brief, and she basically washed her hands of it and wanted me to negotiate that with the prosecutor.
Now, didn't you, wasn't there an exchange of words there where she did mention, or you had mentioned, that this matter was already resolved because you had sent in your paperwork to the other judge?
Okay, legal tender, and I'll just go back to that. They call it a bond, and not the bond that we think of in jail and release or anything, but they call it a bond.
Yeah, I did. I apologize. I did bring that up as well, and I asked her. I said, I believe this case has already been resolved, and I said I sent in the paperwork to so and so judge, and I said, well, that's not the right judge, and that's not the person. She's a civil law, not criminal law, judge. But that's about all she said. And then again, she just went back to, you're going to be dealing with the prosecutor on this. I think she was really just looking to, wash her hands from it and push it back to the prosecutor to deal with it.
Right. So that was day one. She rescheduled it for a month later, or hearing number one. She rescheduled that for a month later. But she told you that you have to take it up with the prosecutor. That's the judge is a civil law judge. Again, you have to take it up with the prosecutor. So it's almost like she was telling you who exactly to take it up with, because you did say you were there on special appearance, and it was clear that you weren't going to be who she wanted you to be. So you left, and you came back, and we worked on it again. And what did we really do? We didn't really do a whole lot, did we, after that?
No, we just, that's when we actually changed it from the original, judge that we sent it to sending it to the state's attorney.
Right.
Which,
because
all we changed.
Yeah, because they sent the documents back to you. Ironically enough, when you got home that day, later that day, all your documents, they returned to sender, they came back to you, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And then, so when we talked, I said, it sounds like she's really telling you who it needs to go to. And that's when it clicked for both of us, because I said, well, that makes sense. I mean, the state's attorney is underneath the attorney general, and the attorney general is the alien property custodian. And in the Trading with the Enemy Act, that's who's holding the property, which is the trust account, the straw man account, that whole thing. So they're the ones that we're going to appoint to do the discharge. And so we didn't do much. We just edited the document to send it to him, and changed the information on the mailing and sent it right back out just the same. Didn't change really much at all, did we?
That's correct. And the good news, I think, was, after, since we had a little bit more time, we didn't receive anything back.
Right.
So I think at that point we felt pretty confident that, okay, this looks good, right? We're not getting any paperwork back, and
Yep.
they've accepted it.
That's right. And in our notice, we did change a few things. In our notice from the executor, we basically put, under the law merchant or commercial law in your state, we looked up the equivalent of the UCC at the state level, and we put the, we just cited the two codes that basically say if you receive a good tender, there's discharge, and if you refuse a good tender, there's discharge. And if you don't send it with all, if you don't return it with all the reasons why it's dishonored, there's discharge. So we let them know that we know how this works, kind of thing. And that was the only thing we changed. So then you had another hearing, you went back, and that was this morning. And why don't you tell everybody what went on there?
Right. So what happened today was actually very simple. It was just the prosecutor, which is what I had to deal with. prosecutor called me up and opens up the file, and I gave him a little bit of time to see if he had anything to say. And he didn't really say anything initially, and I started by saying, for the record, I'm here on special appearance as a Connecticut tort private jurisdiction, and to the best of my knowledge, this case has already been settled. So the prosecutor kind of gave me a look, and he started shuffling through some of the paperwork that he had there, which was it was some state paperwork that he had that he was going through, as well as the whole file. So he started shuffling through the paperwork, and then he asked, are you John Henry Doe? And I said, no, I'm John Henry of the family Doe. And so he was kind of giving me these interesting looks. Basically then he said, okay, give me a minute to, look through this paperwork. And I think he already kind of knew at that time. I think he was trying to find a way out to figure out how he's going to get out of this. So he took I stood there for probably a minute or two as he was reading through his paperwork to try to figure out what he was going to do. And then he made an interesting comment. He made a comment that, he goes, this shouldn't even be a criminal case. He goes that, the police can write up whatever they want, but this doesn't make sense as a criminal case. So I thought that was an interesting comment coming from the prosecutor.
It is, because traffic violations are quasi-criminal to begin with. It's all quasi-criminal. It's commercial. And since we took it into the commercial realm, I mean, he wasn't lying.
Right. So he kind of continued looking through, that paperwork, and he looked up at me one last time. He said, is this your vehicle? And I said, no, it's the estate's property. And I think at that point, he was pretty much finished. And that's when he said, this case is nele prosequi.
Nole prosequi.
Prosequi.
Yeah.
He said, then he goes, so the state's not going to proceed with this case. And I said to him, thank you. And he said, if this happens again, you're going to be back here again. And I responded just by saying, it's already been taken care of. And he kind of laughed. And then as I turned to walk away, and I thought this was very interesting, as I turned to walk away, he said, enjoy your holidays. And he winked at me, almost like to say, good job. Like,
yep.
That, you did a good job. And I just wished him well as well.
That's awesome.
And we kind of ended it at that.
I mean, when you let me know, it's funny because the whole time we were doing this, I kept having this feeling like this is just going to go smooth. I mean, we've done our due diligence. You did everything correctly. You didn't argue. You didn't fight. You gave them a good legal tender. You let them know who you were. You stood in your jurisdiction, which is the first principle of all of this. And you did it in an honorable, way with dignity and respect, and you didn't get belligerent, which is what they want, right? Because as soon as you're belligerent, that's it. And we just did a few. You didn't even really have to do a lot of paperwork because it was just printed off your computer because everything was already recorded in the public record.